Hello and welcome back to Music Theory for Worship. Today we want to talk about a really important concept because you see there's a world of difference between the right chord and the right chord spelled out the right way. And so I want to overemphasize this by saying it's all about. Now of course you're thinking, well, it's all about Jesus. Yes, it's all about Jesus. But for our purposes we're going to say it is all about
voicing. You gotta make sure you know how to use good voicing.
It's all about voicing. That's true. That's true. It's all about voicing. Because there's a world of difference between the right chord and the right voicing for that chord. Now we're going to talk about 4 different ways to change the voicing of a chord. For example, we know the E chord. But if I started the song, Open the Eyes of My Heart this way, open the eyes of my heart, you'd say that doesn't sound like that song. What I'm used to is this voicing, this open voicing with no third. Open the eyes of my heart. Let me show you one more E chord. Here I am to worship. Here I am to God. It's a much softer chord, isn't it? There's that, and then there's that. Put the third in the bass, and it's a different sound.
Sounds like a first inversion chord.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
That's nice.
Okay, so voicing. First of all, one way to change the voicing is closed versus open. What do we mean by closed versus open?
Well, closed is of course meaning that the chord itself is very small and compact. Now, with open voicing, you're talking about a very spacious chord. Very spacious.
So, if I have closed voicing and I'm going to do a C chord, I would go C, E, G.
That's a closed chord.
That's closed. If I skip the E on the way, and I put the E up an octave, let's say.
Well, that's suddenly open.
That's open voicing,
very
isn't
spacious.
it? That's very open. It's a whole different sound. A lot of times we do strings with this open voicing. And a lot of times when we want a more driving kind of sound, we'll pack all the voices together nice and close because we want it to sound fuller, closer. Okay, so you know this sound, this closed voicing sound. It's part of, Star Wars.
Oh, you're taking me right to the Death Star now.
On the other hand, there are some open voicings that are kind of famous sounds too. We have this sort of open Americana sound. Wide open spaces.
Like Kansas. Lots of room.
All right, now most chords are some mix of closed versus open, but anyway, that's one option, okay? That's one way to change the voicing on a chord, and it really makes a big difference. A second way to change the voicing on a chord is the number of voices in that chord. Now, you don't have a whole lot of options with guitar. You got anywhere from 4 to 6 strings that you can play at a time, and you can't have more or less, really. But with piano, again, you've got 88 strings, and you've got
20
fingers between us. And so we could play a C chord that has lots and lots of voices. That's a lot of voices. That's a lot of voices. Or we could play one that just has 3 notes. Or whether it's closed or open, it still only had that many voices. So number of voices can make a big difference. If you're writing for orchestra, you keep that in mind. Number of voices vocally is going to make a difference as well. Okay, so we've changed the voicing in 2 different ways. What are those ways so far?
We have the position, whether that be open or closed.
Correct.
We also have the number of voices in which you can use in a chord.
Number of voices. Here's a third option, and that is inversion. Inversion.
Ooh.
For a simple triad, root, third, and fifth, you've got three options for the inversion. There's root position, where the name of the chord is what's in the bass,
on the bottom.
C, E, G. And then there's first inversion, where you take the C, put it up an octave, which leaves the E as the lowest
The
note.
third of a chord.
Whatever octave it's in, the third of the chord. Okay? Now that tends to be a softer sound. Some people call that a feminine sound. Listen. Hear it? And there's a second inversion. You take the third of the chord, put it up an octave. What's left on the bottom is the fifth of the chord. Okay? We will discover later there are only 3 or 4 possible uses for a second inversion chord. Okay, so the inversion makes a big difference. In particular, if you used first inversion versus root position, makes a big difference in the sound. All right, let's review again. There are 3 ways now to change the voicing of a chord, and those are
The position of the chord, open or closed. The number of voices used. There can be so many different voices. And the inversions of the chord.
the last way to change the voicing on a chord is simply to add a note to it. Well, we'll talk more about this later when we talk about how to fatten a chord, but you can add. You start with the simple triad, you can add a 6 to it, you can add a 2, add a 7, add a 9, and a 7, add a 4.
Got a flat 13.
Flat 13. There it is, flat 13.
Flat 13.
So we can rightfully say it's all about
Voicing.
Take note of this. A middle C, for example, could be a part of a lot of different chords. It could be the root of anything that starts with the letter C. C major, C minor, C7, C minor 7,
Oh, yeah.
C9,
9.
C sharp 11. Anyway, C, whatever. Okay,
Uh-huh.
but it could also be the third of
A minor.
A minor or
A flat major.
A flat major. It could be, see, I'm still using the same note there, okay? So whether I'm with a C and it's the root of that chord, or with some sort of an A where it's the third of that chord, it could be the fifth of some kind of chord.
Like an F.
Like an F.
Or an F minor.
Or an F minor. Or an F sharp diminished.
Oh.
Anyway, it could be the fifth of some chord. And so my C now is used in all these different chords, and yet functions in all of them. Okay?
Possibilities are nigh endless.
Nigh. Now, of course, it could also be the 7th of a chord. It could be the 9th of a chord. Let's not even get into all of that. The point is, there are at least 25 different chords, fairly common chords, that one particular pitch could be a part of. So, have fun working on voicing. Okay?
Voicing.
As you work on your song and as you lead people in worship, be aware not only of playing the right chord, because there's a world of difference between the right chord and the right voicing for that chord. It's all about.
Voicing. Ah.
There you have it. So it's not just getting the right chord, it's getting the right voicing for that chord that really makes a worship song work. Whether you're trying to create a quiet mood or a strong celebration or whatever it might be, if you just do the plain chord, then you're only halfway there. The voicing is the other half of it. And so I say, it's all about
Voicing.